All right, everybody, I told you I would show you a little bit about interactive notebooks. So this is one that I actually did with my fourth graders. I was still in the classroom. So we started off the year with our word problems. And like I said, I always made sure to include the standard, whether it came on something that I purchased or we wrote it ourselves. We even have little tabs over here as we taught things that I got through a Donors Choose grant, and those little tabs, and that went on our notebooks, and the kids had those too. So here's some word problems, and you can see that we went through our process of circling, underlining, all of that I'm going to teach you with cubes. So here's some examples here, and we always put the date. And notice we always write a sentence to go with our word problem. So we spent the whole first couple weeks doing word problems. Here's an example of a tape diagram, which was one of the main things that we used. So we would always show our work. Sometimes we would put in vocabulary and notes that were, I wanted this to be something where they could take it home with them at the end of the semester. We did one per semester, and they would have something to show all of their learning for the year. So if I had a worksheet that I wanted them to do, we would shrink it and we would glue it in our notebooks to make it just a little bit easier to keep up with. And I would do a lot of this with them under the document camera. So what you see in my notebook is what should have been in theirs. Obviously, it's, you know, there might have been a little messier, but we had page numbers and standards, which were supposed to go on the table of contents. I tended to lose track of my table of contents a lot because I did 3 of these notebooks, one for each class. This is an example of a tape diagram. So here's another one. This is a word problem that has a part A and part B and part C. So this is a good example of when we say critical thinking and problem solving. Can you write a problem for them that is going to give them information, have them solve something, and then use that information to solve another one? So you can write your own. There's a note page, vocabulary. We talked about types of division. Okay, let's see. Let's go back a little bit. This was some fraction things. These are foldables. So open it up. You have the work. Again, just a little more fun than doing a worksheet. Notes. And they had to copy the notes, as we talked about it. The notes were typically done during the I do portion, but they would copy them down as I wrote them and talked about them. See, this was a worksheet, and we just folded it and glued the back side of one page. But like I said, I typically shrunk them on the copy machine. Vocabulary. I mentioned when we were doing linking cubes about this linking cube activity where we grabbed the cubes out. So this is what they had in their notebook. Some other line plot. Oops, that came out. Some other line plot type activities. This is when we did their handstands. This was a map that they did in the classroom with partners. They did this in the classroom with their partners, and it was measurement, customary, and metric. And so we brainstormed the different types of measurement. And here's capacity, like what would you measure using fluid ounces, cups, pints, etc. This is the gallon Queen. I don't know if I showed y'all this in class yet, but this is Gallon Land. And in Gallon Land, there are 4 queens. Each queen had a prince and a princess. And each prince and princess had 2 children. So that's a quick way that they can draw, and they would draw that on their test papers to help them remember the conversions. This is a sort. They had to cut these out and sort them in their book. This is a vocabulary. Taking construction paper, just cutting that and having them write the words and write the definitions underneath. This is a sort. I think the pieces are down in here. So this is Polygon Detectives. They're in there, but I can't grab them. And they had to sort the pieces. Here we go. So they had the shape. They had to sort. It has 1 set of parallel sides. So it would go in that pocket. These statements are true. These are false. Sorts are always good because it just gives them something to cut and paste and do other than a worksheet. So I really, really like sorts. You'll see a lot of those in my stuff. These are just little flaps. So like measure the angle of the mountain. They had to measure using their protractor and put the measurement underneath. And then what type it was. So that was that one. I think this one was one from the first semester. This started out being a kid's and they moved, so I took the notebook and used it. You can tell that's a child's handwriting, so you can kind of see what the kid did. But once the child moved, I took the notebook and made it the teacher copy. This is when the beginning of 4th grade, we're comparing numbers and vocabulary, talking about rounding. This is when I started, you can tell when it became my notebook. So I would take word problems and shrink them. A football team lost 5 yards on one play and then lost 8 yards on the next play. What number sentence represents the number of yards the team lost? So even though it said what number sentence, there it is in the question, the number sentence represents. But I did make them do a tape diagram because we were learning tape diagrams. So they always had to do the tape diagram with it. So we started off with all addition. So let's go back just for a second here and look at this word problem. Mr. Melton travels for his job. This week he traveled 164 miles on Monday, 120 miles on Tuesday, and 95 miles on Friday. How many miles did he travel in all? So the total is the top, and then miles, it shows the 1 day, 164, second day, third day. So you can see if you have all of your parts, then you need your whole, then you're going to have to add. And they would write the sentence and do the math over there. Up here, notice that the numbers are circled. In cubes, you circle the numbers, you underline the question, and you box any keywords. That's the CUB in cubes. And then you evaluate and solve. And here are the cubes, the cubes right here. That's the steps. All right. I'm flipping through. Here's where we did the addition algorithm. And yes, we do use the word like algorithm. I want the students to understand that word. Addition with tape diagrams. This was addition. I showed you briefly about the discs. So this is how that works. So they did this in their notebook. I think this may have gone with that PowerPoint that I showed y'all from my observation. More word problems. So when you're looking for critical thinking and problem solving, this is the kind of stuff you could put in there. You could put some word problems that you could design something for an interactive notebook would be good. Some more examples. This one is a part A and part B, which is highly recommended. So if you notice, it says about how many tickets were sold to parents, teachers, and students, round each number to the nearest 100, and then exactly how many tickets. So that's part A and that's part B. All right, let's flip back a little more. Subtraction. Notice this grid paper here. This is very good to teach subtraction addition on. It's just 1 centimeter graph paper, and I would run thousands of copies of it at the beginning of the year because it was something that actually our SPED teachers told me to do with our SPED students because it helps them line up the numbers. But I did it with everybody. 1, because it helps everybody, and 2, because if there's something like this that works and that they can actually use this on the leap, you can give them any kind of paper, then you know, why have a student stand out and be different when everybody can use it and it's beneficial? Unless the child didn't want to use it. Then I gave everybody the opportunity. These are word problem cards where there's a pocket on one of these pages. So they just glued them on the cards and then solved it on the back and would stick them in there, and they could do like 1 a day or whatever. I think this is a little pocket. This shows how you can make a pocket out of just paper. You can also make pockets. You can take a envelope and seal it, and after you seal it, cut the top off, and it makes a nice pocket for an interactive notebook. Here we get into multiplication. This is just graph paper glued into the notebook. Here's a pocket. This is actually a library pocket. They were giving away a bunch of these when they went to computers on library, so I took them all because they made great for interactive notebooks. All right, so this is our factor teas. It's where we were starting to talk about factors, and so we did a couple a day. We went ahead and glued it all in here, but we only did a few a day until we had it done. Area and perimeter. Area and perimeter. I got these interactive notebook ideas all came off of Teacher Pay Teacher. Those did. And then here, things that are area. This is another sort. Word problems involving area and perimeter. So here's perimeter assessment. And I could grade their interactive notebooks like this too. Could be used as part of their grade. This is practicing the box method. And then for Christmas, what I did is so that they would have work to take home, I ran a whole bunch of worksheets off, shrunk them for this, and before they left for the holidays, they glued one on each page. And then when they came back after Christmas break, if they had done all of their pages, then they got a special treat or bonus points. If they didn't need bonus points, they got a treat. If they needed bonus points, then they could get bonus points. So that's why those are blank, because that was just, I would glue them in here and just show them where they would go on what pages. And then they took their notebook home. It wasn't mandatory that they did those, but if they brought their notebook back after Christmas and it was done, like I said, they got a treat or they got a bonus points to help their grade, because we didn't have to turn in report card grades until after Christmas then. And so it was a way for them to make up their points if they were lacking on that. And then if they didn't, they got to keep their notebook at home after that, because this was the first semester and it was finished. So they had a nice little notebook to take home with them. And like I said, I did one for each class. That's why that says Miss Frederick, because that was the homeroom class. And this was the one for my homeroom class. And then I had another one as well. So I hope that helps you a little bit to see about interactive notebooks, as well as critical thinking and problem solving, how you can use the word problems. So I encourage you to write your own word problems. You can look at others for example, but be creative and let's see what you come up with.